Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Boss Rush. We're coming to you every Friday at 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific here on LinkedIn and YouTube. And I'm so thrilled that first, Dean and Suze are not going to be able to be with us today, but I'm thrilled for our guest co-host and friends. My name is Chris Melisinos. I'm the principal evangelist for video games here at AWS. And who is joining me right next to me up here at the top? Introduce yourself, please.
So I am Jen MacLean, longtime listener, first-time caller, and I have done a lot in the industry right now. I am the co-founder and CEO of Dragon Snacks Games, which is making a social role-playing game.
Yay, Jen, it's so good to see you. And directly below Jen, we have...
Ric Neil. I'm here reporting for duty as requested, sir.
But here's my big question. Is everything fine?
And it's shipping on time.
Okay, then that's all we need to know.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Be in the industry since the early 90s and worked with such great people as Chris and Mark, and I'm super gracious to have my own startup now, like Jen, a small team based out of the Pacific Northwest in Portland, doing kind of the same thing, making kids games, making fun games and entertaining humans. I feel super lucky and blessed.
And you look, the fact that you worked on failures like Madden football, we will still have you on anyway. Maybe you know what you're doing. So
maybe.
And of course, last but absolutely not least, we have who? Mr. Who?
Mr. Who?
Yes, all right, it's
Mr. Who.
Not Dean.
Sounds like a Dr. Seuss character. I'll take it.
Right.
Hey, I'm Mark DeLora. I am a 30-year game industry guy, doing lots of tech and lately lots of ed tech. So if you are interested in kids games, I am here for you.
Awesome. And also, I hope you're feeling better. Mark wasn't able to join us last. You got to go ahead and make sure that you're fine for next week, because we're going to be in New York for the Games for Change
for Games for Change. Anybody in New York for Games for Change who wants to talk about trying to fund Games for Change, Games for Impact? We're doing a talk. Ed Metz and Aaron and I are doing a talk on funding Games for Impact, which should be interesting, because I'm not sure we know how to do it. So
I was going to say,
is there a way to do that?
What's going to be great is that we're going to have a lot of smart people in the room, and Aaron's from a VC, Ed is former Department of Education Small Business Grant Program, and I'm a loudmouth who worked in the White House for a while. So we've got some opinions, so it'll be fun. Please come.
Awesome. That's right. And get those sniffles under control before we see you up there, buddy.
Yeah, I want to try.
Yep. And we're going to have a lot. Amir Satfat's going to be up there as well. Oh, yes, Mr. Bowser.
Good human.
Bowser has joined the chat. Peach has joined the chat.
A wild
I like how
Bowser
you're color
approaches.
coordinated with Bowser's vest today. That's
Oh yeah, I worked on that until late, so thanks.
Well, if everybody pays attention, you'll hear perhaps Bowser joining the live stream too. Well, you'll hear some farts and belches and snoring, which is exactly. He understood the assignment. He showed up today. So, all right, before we go and jump into this week's news, since it's the first time we have both Jen and Ric joining us, why don't we take a few minutes? Jen, let's start with you. Tell us about Dragon Snacks Games and tell us what it is that you're working. You've been doing a lot of interviews lately and podcasts and stuff. So glad to have you here to tell us and listeners what you're working on.
Yeah, thanks so much. So before starting Dragon Stacks, I was at Xbox, and my team ran the largest third-party partnerships: EA, Epic, Roblox, Riot, Ubi, Take-Two, about 25 top publishers. And I also co-led next-gen content strategy. And so I got to see not only the metrics for those titles, but also a lot of the research Microsoft had done on Gen Z and Gen Alpha. It became really obvious to me that as players start to invest their gaming time and experiences outside of Minecraft and Roblox, they go to games like Fortnite and Valorant, but there's no real middle ground, no way for people to have a collaborative, cooperative, creative experience that is a little bit more sophisticated than a Minecraft or a Roblox. And I thought, man, there is just this huge opportunity, especially for tweens, teens, young adult women who are looking for a way to socialize with their friends. And frankly, as a mom of an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 20-year-old, I really don't want them spending any more time on social media. I feel super, super strongly that as an industry, we are not paying enough attention to platforms like YouTube Shorts as competition. And I really wanted to double down on co-opting those platforms to bring people back to games instead of losing that time and attention. The platforms that can often be really harmful to a kid or teenager or young adults or even an older adult's mental health. And so I talked to my great friend, Chris Nemkoski, who most recently had been at Scopely, where he led the team that shipped Monopoly Go, and Michelle Menard, who had been creative director at Oxide. They were seeing the same thing with their kids that I was seeing with mine. And we had all kind of independently arrived at the idea of this social role-playing game that takes place in persistent private servers that are invite only. So you are not playing with, as my kids would say, sus people. And that really lean into the idea of building something and growing something together and sharing that with the people who matter most to you and sharing it on socials as well. So we started Dragon Snacks in October. When we were at GDC, we had an early playable of our exploration prototype. We will be at Gamescom with a hands-on playable vertical slice. And we have been having so much fun. I can't remember the last time I have had this much fun ever.
That is amazing. You know, one of the things that you mentioned, and it's something that that I say a lot, you know, internally here at AWS, and we're talking about like the mission that we're on, and just in generally industry, right? It's about also helping people to play the games experience they like with the people they love, right? And how do we protect everything within that sphere? The developers, making sure that stuff gets out, and then the players, so they can find their community, they can have those experiences. It's trusted, it's inclusive of a wide variety of people and ages and brackets. And so what you're building over there just resonates so deeply with me, because I believe that, you know, we have a lot left to explore with how video games will impact us, right, as human beings, and more awesomeness and goodness coming into the world through gameplay, through the stuff that you're building and those types of games. Amazing. So I could not be happier for you that you're on that journey right now. So go ahead. Come on. Did somebody jump in? We could go ahead.
Jumping in. I'm going to introduce. Yeah.
Oh, we had to let the audience back there go ahead and give us some applause. What's wrong with you people?
I'll jump in and talk about Noctua Interactive. It's a similar vibe from Jen's world. I met Nathan at a meetup randomly in Portland, and I tried to talk him out of starting a video game company, but he had never done video games before. He's a writer that's been frustrated by doing startups. So he's written 7 stories that he would like to get out in the world. All of them are what you talk about, Jen. It's transformative story, narrative-based games. The first one's based on 3 brothers that wake up in their dream world and realize they can interact with each other. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they have to save the world from the evil nightmares. But it's a redemption story where you're learning that dreams are not bad, nightmares aren't bad. This is part of how we are as humans. And all the stories he's written are focused on some kind of deeper learning and mainstay story that we grew up on back in the day, right? You get dysentery, right? You learned from Oregon Trails what the story was, right? So I tried to talk him out of it. After 8 months of him bugging me, he finally said, I'm going to do it with or without you, Rick. So I joined. We're going into our 2nd year with the same premise. Let's take super great, talented, cagey old vets. We've been doing this since we know how to make a great game. Mm-hmm. Let's take his stories. Let's release those, because you're right. There's a huge underserved community of people that don't want to do headshot games, I call them, right? And that's okay. If you build a business model based on finding that niche and going to serve that niche, you can eat and you can be happy. And the other part of it, which I'm having the most fun, is we get to make games that are fun that we really like. So you're right. I'm having so much fun. I was arguing the velocity speed of the arrow with Adam Bellin, our CTO, and the X factor, the X statement. And I haven't done that in years. I've been managing teams at Amazon and Microsoft, and that's not making games. That's managing people. But back to making games with 6 to 8 people in the worst time in the industry, when everything is completely exploded. It's the best time in the world to be an indie developer, right, Jen?
Yep.
We can do everything ourselves.
Man, that resonates so much with me, Rick, for so many reasons. My role at Xbox was making big companies bigger. And now I get to build, and I get to be around people
again
that build, right? Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, prior to Xbox, I had the pleasure of working with Jen over here at AWS. So she knows, and Rick knows, well, and Mark knows. We all know a thing or two about working for big companies and what it takes to try to move that ball, kick that water uphill, and also, wait, I think we have a little bit of a music interlude that should be popping in here. Wait,
technology. Come on with the technology.
Can we hear that?
I can't hear it.
Oh, you can't hear it? Oh.
I hear your dulcet tones.
Oh, you do hear my dulcet tones. Yeah.
Dulcet.
Yeah, we're gonna, you guys go ahead and keep talking. I'm going to see if I can go ahead and get this to work here for Mr. Ric Neil.
I agree with you, Jen. When you're working in those big teams, you're working on a product. You're not making a game, right? Even when I had teams of 300 to 400 people, there's still 3 people in a room deciding what we're going to do. Right? The game director, you could call him the creative director, whatever you want to call him. Sometimes it's the CEO or the VP of marketing telling you what to do, but it's really those guys, and everybody else is executing and trying to make things fun. But being in the trenches and working in the engine, the tools right now blow me away. I wish we had these in the 90s, the Mega Light stuff, the Lumen stuff, everything is procedural, Mark, so we can change it all on the fly. The programmers haven't even started to play with that yet. Right?
We didn't need that stuff back then, though. There was so little code, we could just go in there and tweak it.
Yeah,
now you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about the times is you look at the arc of the game industry is the sort of push and pull of the tools that get built as things get more complicated, and it takes a longer amount of time to build an animation, do a texture map, whatever. There are people who will pop up and make great tools to try and speed that up.
When we were working on Civ 2 at Microsoft or at Microprose, not Microsoft, it was fascinating because so much of the game was done by this core of 3 or 4 people. And you didn't have engines, and you had a super small team that made, I think, what is still one of the best games that I have ever played. And I played that game for a long time.
Yeah, I bet.
And, now one of the things that I worry about for this industry, and this might be kind of topical depending on what we talk about today, is you have teams of hundreds of people spending hundreds of millions of dollars making experiences that are not good, that, for whatever reason, focus too much on graphical fidelity and not enough on fun, that are bloated, that are late. And I feel like it is a great time to be an indie developer because it gives us the flexibility to really think, hey, what matters? What matters is fun. How do we bring back the fun? And how do we do it in a way that's responsible to our players, responsible to our investors, responsible to our team, and do it in a way that doesn't require hundreds of millions of dollars? Because when I think about the games that I have enjoyed most over the last 6 months, Balatro, Blueprints, Expedition 33, all really amazing games that did not require teams of hundreds or thousands of people and budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars. Also, Metaphor ReFantasio, which I need to highlight because I'm just a huge Atlas fangirl.
I have to try that one.
Yeah. Well, there's been some discussions going. Well, there's always this discussion, right? Which is the economics of making games today versus the art of making games. And well, there's that old saying, right? All art is commercial art, right? So it doesn't matter what you're making, right? At some point, right? It's commercial art. In fact, it really
what saying is that?
It's very true. It's very true. In fact,
Not true.
It most certainly is.
Why is it true?
Okay, so I'll give you a perfect example. One of the ways I was able to help frame why video games are an art form for other institutions was they would bring up people like Norman Rockwell, and I'm like, yeah, without the Saturday Evening Post, there's no Norman Rockwell. Like the distribution channel and the ability for that artwork to make its way into the world for an audience to consume and understand that required commercial entity in order to push it forward. My wife and I were in Rome last year, and talking to a concierge about, going to the Vatican and everything else. They're like, look, if all you're doing is really going to see the Sistine Chapel, don't do that. Go to any church on any street corner, and it's all the same artists doing all of the same work. Like, you're going to get all of that. So, yes, there are things that lean more towards the art for art's sake and may never find a commercial opportunity. And there's also highly commercial art. It doesn't take away from, large revenue producing things, doesn't take away the skill, artistry, storytelling. But it's the friction in between of how do we get that to market, people not wanting to take risks, right? And when you also take the wrong money, right? And that's a tough way to phrase it because people still need to eat and provide for their families while they're making this art. Along with that can come we don't want to take those risks, and instead we're going to play it safe and kind of do this and copy this and make a land grab, right? And we have all of that in the mix of everything that we do within this industry, right? So
it's true.
We're going to talk about news.
Yeah, no, but this is good. We had our
you had the rebuttal.
Our guest host there. Oh, he has nothing to say. See, I just shut that down. That is how you go ahead and do that. Yeah, right on this side over here.
That's my job.
Mark has entered the ring. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into some news. And we always start over here on the Games Beat site. So again, Jen, Rick, thank you so much for joining us today. And Mark for, again, doing the job. All right. There were a couple of big things that popped up here. Actually, let me go ahead and get one right out of the way because I keep harping on this. Amazon Prime.
Who?
Right? What? Amazon Prime Day, and this is directly from Dean Takahashi here, GamesBeat. You can get 6 bonus games that they're giving away on Prime Games. So if you're already paying for Prime, goodness sake, please go to the freaking website and just get your free games. Like, I don't understand how people keep missing this. Here you go. It is the Prime Gaming website. And if you go to gaming.amazon.com, go right here to the front site, and these are the games that I've yet to collect for this month. Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 Remastered, Saint Rose 2, Tome, Star Wars Rebellion, Saint Rose 4, Undiscovered Realms, Dark Envoy, Golf with Your Friends. I mean, click on them and just go get them, right? Fill that backlog. And if you're going to have a backlog, at least go ahead and have it with free ass games, right? And it's not just Amazon, it's also Epic. Every week they give away free games. Sign up for your account, go get your free ass games, right? So that's my plea to you all. That's
your soapbox this week.
Yeah, and it's not an Amazon thing, it's a gamer thing. They're free. So go get them, right? Go get them and play. All right. So that's the one I got out of the way. What big news, Mark, do you have for the week that you want to jump into? Is there anything on the GamesBeat site, or tell us some stories that are popping around in that big noggin of yours we need to talk about?
Well, I saw Bruno Mars is going to be in Fortnite, and I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's not game development, but
it is the industry. Yeah, let's go ahead and actually go ahead and pop that up right there. Yeah, I mean, if this doesn't also highlight just how prevalent video games are and how important those audiences, like, I don't know like, how much more proof do you need?
Have you seen all the partnerships they've done in Fortnite? It's insane. Sabrina Carpenter was not
Yes.
too long ago. It's just like, what?
Yes. Yeah. Epic Games announced today the headlining music actor icon for season 9 of Fortnite Festival's Bruno Mars virtual stop in the Artist World Tour. The shop will feature jam tracks such as Mars' collaborative songs Die With a Smile and APT. Other changes coming with the new season include gameplay improvements, and now you can play it on iOS. So, yeah, there's no reason to not jump in and play Fortnite. But yeah, I thought that one was pretty cool.
Okay, I thought that was awesome, but really, let's talk about some development stuff. The thing that popped for me was this announcement about working with AMD on the next generation of Xbox. Did you see that one?
Yep, sure
Yeah,
did.
that's interesting.
Yep, let's talk. Yeah, there we go. Sarah
To
Bond
some
thing.
extent, it's what I expected.
Right.
Yeah.
To some
I mean, Phil's been talking about wanting a handheld for more than a year. And, granted, I was paying a little bit more attention to this a year ago before I left Xbox, but this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who has listened to Phil or Starbond or Matt Booty talk about how they see Xbox really evolving so that you can play anywhere. And if you think back to This Is an Xbox ad campaign that they did, like, yeah, not a surprise. And I think it's actually really good for players because what I have seen is that handheld play is actually additive. It doesn't cannibalize play from a PC or a console. And if you think about a lot of the use cases, if you have a Steam Deck or Switch or a Rogue Ally, any handheld, like I will bet money that those use cases are almost always times when you could not or would not be playing on your gaming PC or your console.
Yeah, I know a few people that only play games that can stream through Xbox so they can play on any device. There's like so many games that I want. They're all available for me everywhere. And now I can just keep playing instead of, you're right, going to an interruptive game where I'm going to play a mobile game for a while wait to get back to my other big game. That's the future. Devices are already ubiquitous. And the users are treating it that way. The publishers and the developers need to figure that out and follow that.
Yeah.
There was a question mark that I had out of this, though. I mean, the only pause that this gave me was thinking about AI, because most of the AI work runs on, most efficiently on NVIDIA chips these days and using CUDA. And so that this was a little bit of an interesting note. Admittedly, current generation, I think, is also all AMD. So you're not exactly running like frontier models on your Xboxes typically. So maybe this is fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, right. So running with AMD, and that's basically what are in those portable platforms, right? And then running Linux there, and then running Proton, and then having Windows on top of it, right, creates that compatibility layer. And this is something. Look, we've talked about it. I know you all have heard me scream about it for literally 2 decades about how we're going to get the same distribution pathways that linear content gets, right? So create a video once, right. It's in an MPEG-4 container or what have you, and then it works on virtually every device with the screen, but we don't get to do that with games. And so it's not necessarily also about having the highest fidelity experience, but it's the optionality, right? People that want 240 hertz, ultra wide, 4K, all that stuff, they're already going to have, a 50 series GPU, and basically it's a space heater for their room. That's not where they're going to traditionally play games, right, that are, let's say, streaming. However, if they happen to be on the road away from that and they still want to engage in content that they love, that's a perfect option for them to go and engage in. It's not about replacing one thing. It's about having those experiences across all those devices. So, yeah.
But isn't the counter argument to that Nintendo's moat is really that it makes surprise and delight through custom experiences that you can't have on other platforms?
I think Nintendo's moat is that it has amazing first-party content.
Right.
That it is like it's holding on to super, super tight.
It's if you ported Mario to Xbox, is it any less of a great game?
Yes.
Well, if it was the Wii version, it would be a less of a great game.
Well, I'm just saying, right?
Or if it was a Switch version with the little mousy mouse thing.
We figured out we could port to any device and deliver the same delightful experience. But yes, because they own their hardware, they need to. That's their cost center at that point.
Yeah, but all right. Well, here's the argument then. How come the Mario type games didn't do well on mobile, right? It's certainly ran
because that's a different dynamic, right? It's a free-to-play game and it's an interruptive game. And when you go to play Mario Kart at home, that's a destination. I'm going to go with my friends, sit down on the couch. We're going to go do this thing. When I have my mobile in my hand, it's like Mario right now. No, dude, I'm Clash of Clans. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Interruptive brain set is a different brain set from destination. And we're melding those two, but they're still distinct game events and game types that we need to build.
And I love that you said that, Rick. Thank you. Thank you very much. So see how I did that? That's that reverse psychology.
That's very
we hear
nice
about.
of you.
Yeah, but also Nintendo doesn't compete with anybody else. Nintendo's just Nintendo, right?
I think that I strongly disagree with that.
Okay.
I think Nintendo competes with Netflix and with YouTube, right? So
yes,
at the end of the
TikTok.
day, players' most valuable currency is time. And if I make the decision to play Mario Kart World, I am deciding to invest my time there instead of playing a different game, instead of watching something, instead of doing whatever. And so I don't know that I would agree, even if you want to say from a handheld experience that Nintendo doesn't compete with anybody, because when I go to travel, I make a conscious decision. Do I want to bring my Switch or do I want to bring my Steam Deck? And I'm not traveling with both because I can only carry so much in my backpack, right? So I think we're getting to the point as an industry, and this kind of comes full circle for me, where we can't just think about what game is someone not playing when they're playing my game. We have to think about what experience are they not engaging with when they are playing my game.
that is very well stated, and I spoke incorrectly. I don't see them and playing this necessarily the same game as a PlayStation or an Xbox, right? Because of who they are. But 100% absolutely on the nail correct is this is no longer about which game system are you playing or not playing. This is about, it is no longer vying for people's game playing time. It is vying for attention. Right. And as we continue to slice up the way people expect to consume content into small and smaller forms, that's why I feel like the smaller games that can come out that may be narrative driven, that can be completed in 8 hours, are going to start to flood into the market and kind of help to rebuild the middle part of that curve that we've seen move all the way out to the indie side, massive volume, but lower revenue. The AAA side, lower volume, but massive revenue. And that mid-tier has kind of disappeared from the market right now.
Yeah, it's an underserved market for sure.
Yeah.
I love that you highlighted playtime as well, because my mindset when I engage with a game like Balatro or Blueprints, where I have a limited amount of playtime, is very, very different than when I do Expedition 33 or Metaphor or whatever. And I think that there is so much opportunity for that spectrum of play experiences. And one of the things we think a lot about at Dragon Snacks is how we create a game that gives players a 3-minute experience, a 30-minute experience, and a 90-minute plus experience. Because you're going to have people who want that spectrum of experiences based on what is going on in their life, based on where they are, based on what device they have with them. And I feel like if you are not thinking about the time of your experience, in addition to just everything else that goes into making a game, you're kind of missing the point with gaming audiences today.
Yep.
Agreed.
Very well said. All right. So yes, very interesting. They're doing it, working with AMD. Not surprising. Those devices are already so well constructed, so far down the path. It's already pretty much what people want. Now you're wrapping it with some of the Xbox-ness around it, right? And getting rid of the overburdensome pieces of Windows to make it a more refined experience. Smart, right? Very smart to lean into a company already doing that work. So really, really cool. All right. Jen, Rick, what big news pieces have you been thinking about lately?
I'm going to go first. That if you haven't seen the Maximum Football thing that Dean wrote up, everyone should check it out. It's a small indie team going up against Madden, and it's amazing.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's going back to the roots of play with your friend on the couch or play, and what you talked about, Jen, is like giving people that time to play together. right, with your friends again. And it's free on Steam. And they're going to try to monetize it through packs and cards and things like that. But it's proving that you don't need 800 people on Madden to make a football game.
What was the name of that, Rick?
Maximum Football. It's Dean has it somewhere on the Games Beat somewhere. I didn't even deep dive to find out who's publishing it. I think they're called Maximum Games.
Oh yeah, here we go.
So I downloaded. I played a couple rounds, but not with anybody yet. But there it is. What it would have been the kiss of death when you say it's going to launch on PC for a football game. Right. Now that those days are over, right? We've gone to the ubiquitous platform. It's like, yeah, we'll play it on whatever. But it's on Xbox, and I think it's on PlayStation too.
Ooh, that looks very pretty.
That looks great.
Huh.
And half the lure, or more than half the lure for a football game, is visual acuity, but gameplay is what hooks you.
Oh, sure.
And it feels like Madden 98, 99 kind of play, a little simpler. Madden's gotten so complicated, old guys like me can't play it anymore.
See what you did, Rick? See what you started? This is on you, buddy.
I wanted the one button Madden. Whatever button you hit just worked, right?
Yeah.
They never let me put that.
We should build that.
Oh, that is a brilliant idea. Imagine creating a game that no matter what button you pressed on the controller, it act as the one. That's great. You could hand that to.
And it just kept reinforcing you, just sending things on the screen. You're awesome. You're great. You're doing a great job.
Everything's fine, and we're shipping on time.
Yeah, this is minimum football.
Yeah. Well, look. I mean, didn't EA already prove that they didn't need a license around FIFA for it to be an incredible soccer game?
The culture of FIFA,
the
video game was that persona is going to be there forever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to give EA credit, I think they were super smart with Football Club as well, because they expanded beyond just FIFA to bring in a lot of teams and players that you didn't necessarily have before. So it was not just the right idea, but that team executed amazing.
And they were able to deliver features that they couldn't deliver because FIFA was blocking them because of the constraint of the licenses. And they knew the gamers wanted those features. And now they can put whatever feature they need to in, right? So now it's back again, focused on the players and the gamers. So.
Hey, reading the chat here, our good friend Shannon Loftus. Hey, Shannon.
Oh, hey.
Shannon?
She said, I would play the heck out of one button sports anything.
Right?
Yes. So I'll share what, when we talk about the culture, right, of games and all these other diversions that people have. I'll share this quick story with you. Where I live in Northern Virginia, we live 5 miles from the Commander's training facility, right? So big football town. Also a lot of Virginia Tech, banners everywhere, sort of thing. And me not being that sports guy, I'm like, oh, you watching the sports match with all the sports points in it. So anyway, friends of ours, their son got drafted into the NFL. And this was right before COVID, and we were at a neighborhood party, and he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, Mr. Milicinos, I can't believe it." And I'm like, "I know, congratulations on getting signed." He's like, No, I'm in a Madden game now. He's like, "My stats suck, but now I'm forever in a Madden game. I can't believe it." And his mom was like, yeah, like he is so excited that he's now in a Madden game, right? So when we talk about the importance of video games just across our culture, it's inescapable, right? The gravity of it's inescapable. So I just love that. And I was able to point at his dad and go, "See, I told you, video games."
Don't you think we're at a nascent time for that kind of cultural acceptance? Because I'll tell you something, when I joined Electronic Arts in the 90s, I got berated by my entire family and my cousins, and I'm throwing my life away in your waste. What are you going to do?
Look how you turned out.
What are you doing? Right. And I'm a terrible human, right? But now it's so acceptable, right? And it's like, that's just part of our culture. And it's for me, it's validation for all us geeky OCD, ADHD guys, because we had these visions way back when that we wanted to deliver, that everybody was making fun of us. And now we basically won.
Yeah.
What I love is that kids today would never say, "I'm a gamer," because everybody's a gamer.
That's right.
It's like when we were growing up, you'd never say, "Oh, I'm a TV watcher," because of course you are.
Of course you are. Yeah.
And it's the same thing with games. I love that. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
I've had so many arguments with political people about this who are like, "I'm not a gamer. I'm not a gamer." And I'm like, "Well, are you playing Candy Crush? You playing Clash of Clans? Like, well, of course. You play Scrabble? Of course. Like,
Yeah.
then you're a gamer.
Well, the
What are you
argument,
talking about?
well, the argument get to around like, violence in games and it's all about war and everything. And I asked this very well-meaning parent one time, I said, well, here's a game that we can teach your kids how to play. It's a war game. And the objective of the game is to force your opponent into complete submission. And you're willing to sacrifice and kill anybody in your army to do so, and to just, lay waste to everything in the pursuit of forcing them to submission. Would you let them play that? They're like, absolutely not. I said, why wouldn't you let them play chess? Like, what's wrong with that? And they were like,
Yeah.
well, and I'm like, no, it is a straight
Exactly
up freaking war
that.
game, right? And then, it causes people to stop and go, perhaps video games are a whole lot more than you think they are, and let's have that conversation, right? And so, yeah, we're getting there, right? Gen Xers, as we move up into that era, we're not going to have these problems.
It goes back to the state of play, right? The brain in the state of play is you're releasing serotonin and dopamine, and you're making neural pathways, and you're expanding and you're accepting more things, and it's just the brain in the state of play versus a state of fight or fear. Is a better brain. So why not have your kid's brain bathed in a state of play, whether it's outside playing soccer, or how you define what is valuable play is not what your child's definition of valuable play is.
That's
Sorry.
right.
That's just, you just created another human that gets to have its own perceptions. And if your kid thinks a state of play is playing football, what are you going to do?
Hey, look, I remember playing Manhunt and these sorts of games as a kid. So it's not all, the pursuit of it is, oh my God, this guy is going to punch me in the face if I get caught. And so you haul ass. So there's all kinds of play that we engage in as kids. All right, let's go ahead and move on. What big news have you been keeping track of this week?
I would love to talk a little bit about all of the showcases that happened over last week.
Yeah.
Because, part of it is that other than seeing Mixtape again, I didn't really see anything that made me think I have to play that day one. And I compare that to last year where you got your first look at Mixtape, which looks so good. And Expedition 33, which I was like, I need that game in my life. I'm curious, did anybody else see anything in any of the showcases that had you going, yes, I really want to play that day one? Is it just me? Because I was kind of meh on all of them.
Discuss. Anybody in the chat have opinions? Please go ahead and get them in here.
I also wasn't that. I see a few indie games that would surprise me that are going to be interesting, but nothing to be, I can't wait to go play that. Right. I don't know if that's because of all the beatdown we've had the last year with all the negative news and how hard things are, or it's just user behavior has changed, and maybe these showcases don't matter as much as what's going on in my Discord channels. I find more in my Discord channels than I find in GamesBeat. Sorry, Dean. Right? It's in being in those communities. That's what matters, I think, more than
I find
press.
Game Discover Co. to be their Discord to be an amazing resource for game recommendations, in part because that team does such a good job of like popping games that are popping. And Rick, I think you're absolutely right. And I say this as someone who like really genuinely misses E3. I miss the spectacle. I miss seeing the friends. I miss the chance for us to gather as an industry.
Right.
But I couldn't imagine as an indie ever spending the money that you would need to do E3. No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we don't need to anymore. Yeah. Well,
let me ask you, with regard to Mixtape, which, yes, looks amazing, but also how is part of that also because it's like, oh, okay, I grew up in that era. That's my music. That is, I know where I was when I was toilet papering somebody's house,
right.
Those types of things, right?
Or making a mixtape for your friend or the person you were dating. Oh, so many memories.
Yes. Cultural curation of that era, right? Mixtapes were the thing. There was that show, the Goldbergs, which I love because it all takes place in the 1980s. Everything, it's this mashup of all this stuff. And they did an episode called Love is a Mixture Tape. And it's like the mom finding like the tape of her son that he made for his girlfriend, but thinking that it was for her. Like you're the inspiration and stuff. And him lying to his mom to not hurt her feelings. But then the girl listening to him go, wait, isn't that my mixtape? And she's like, no, that's my mixture tape. You know, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah. I think you're right, Jen. It's those kind of resonant game things are definitely resonating. And you said it a while ago, Chris, one of the biggest demographics growing are people over 50 playing games more than ever. And they have more money and they're buying more games and they're going to buy 15 games a month instead of one game a month. They're just doing that, right? So giving them more content and finding things, because we are still gamers, even when we're pushing 70.
Really excellent talk from GDC, I think 2 years ago on 50 plus gamers that I recommend to anybody who's really interested in targeting specifically that sector. It was research backed with collaboration by AARP, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, if we can find the link to that, we'll pop it into the chat for people.
I'll hunt it down.
Yeah.
One of the best studies I ever saw years ago is by Ninja Metrics, and they graphed behavior patterns because I think we tend to focus on gender, but they found a bigger difference in player patterns by age than ever occurred during gender. And that makes so much sense to me as well, because when I kind of like think of my phases of life, when you have young kids, your gaming experience is very, very different. When you are older, your gaming experience is very, very different. And I think as an industry, it kind of gets back to how do we get the industry back to growth? We have to stop thinking our target player is a 20-year-old man.
Yep.
Because the reality is that the audience is so much bigger. And what my 76-year-old aunt wants, and she spends a lot of money on her hidden object and match 3 games, is very different than what my 8-year-old boy wants. And there's this huge spectrum of opportunity between them.
Right.
Yeah, completely agree. And I love my hidden match games too, because my hidden object games, because I'll play them while we're binge watching TV, right? Or doing the coloring ones where you're kind of seeking out all those patterns. Yeah, they're fantastic. Really, really.
Or the story-driven like merge ones, like shout out to Love and Pies, which I just adore, and which I introduced a bunch of my team at Xbox to because it's just so darn sweet and fun.
Awesome. And Mark has just popped that link to that. Thank you, Mark. Age-friendly design by GDC at the GDC Vault there. So thanks, Mark, for pulling that up. Yep. So, going back, though, to what you were saying about not necessarily seeing anything that wowed you, do you find, because I find myself in this camp, too, of there's so much now. There's so much to play that going in and trying to play, I'm like, I've already got stuff that I really want to play that I haven't found the time for. How am I going to possibly add this to the rotation? So I'm just going to kind of ignore it, type of thing. Do you feel that same type of fatigue? Not that there can be too many games, okay? Especially ones that are driven or built entirely by systems and have no creative input from actual people right into them. Different conversation, perhaps over drinks. But we were talking last week about this game called Out of Worlds.
Yeah, that looks amazing.
And it's all claymation and stop motion animation, right? Harkens back to the Neverhood and those types of games. And then Mark, what was the other one the Games for Change one? Remember?
Yeah, I was just thinking of that same thing. Dang it.
Yeah. So Mark and I are going to be at Games for Change next week, and I think we can mention that. We both had different.
Nominated, yeah.
Yeah, and Mark and I both had different. We're judges, right, for different things going on there. And there was one. Henry Halibut.
Harold
Halibut. Gorgeous, gorgeous game.
Beautiful.
Right? And so, yeah, there are some samey things that, Tig here in the chat said. But, I mean, it all looks beautiful. It just, I don't have time to play it all. I'm not that free time millionaire yet, you know. When I become that free time million, which I'll never get the chance to do, right? Because I'm just going to keep helping to do stuff in games. But yeah, no, I agree. Sometimes it feels like I'm missing out on things, but there's always other stuff. That's why I have smarter people and friends like you all to tell me what I've been missing so I can go check it out. And Jen, what was the name of the Discord that you mentioned as well? Let's make sure we put that into the chat.
So first of all, I just wrote down to wish list out of words because that looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
So thank you. The Discord that I'm talking about is Game Discover Co. And so this is Simon Carlos's product that talks about improving game discoverability, essentially.
Yeah.
Newsletters are amazing. That Discord is fantastic. And one of the things that I love is that the GDC, the Game Discover Co team will like pop games that have done particularly well or that are outliers in some ways. So that to me is just a fascinating way to say, oh, okay, what's going on? Why are they doing super well? What are they doing that's different? Because when I think about my life as the CEO of an indie game studio, it is all about discoverability. I have complete and total faith that our dev team is going to make an amazing experience. I lose more sleep about distribution and discoverability hacks than anything else. And so if you are in the games industry at all, I strongly recommend Game Discover Co., the newsletter, the Discord, because it's such a great source of insight and information and of games that you should have on your radar to play as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and Simon's amazing fellow board member of the Video Game History Foundation. Simon's amazing and super brilliant. So yeah, definitely check all this stuff. And thank you for that. I don't fire up Discord enough, and I know I need to. So
everyone's on Discord, just to let you know, Chris. We're all over here.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
but nobody.
And we're talking about you. and what a great job you're doing.
Everything's fine, and we're shipping on time, baby.
I'll send you the link on ICQ.
No, I want to echo what Jen says. I think that's one of the biggest challenges in indie gaming right now is now you own building your community. Don't call it marketing anymore. Don't call it game discovery. Don't call it everything except for go build your community. And if you can resonate and get 30,000 people on your Discord, you can make $1 and you can eat. And that should be our focus. If we can make amazing experiences that our community is resonating with, the community will go organically grow that. We found that on Facebook games. How do we get from 30,000 installs to 2.8 million installs overnight on Tiki Resort? It's because all their friends told their friends, right? Yep. We can build those into our game loops. We can do rewarded things like that within our game loops directly through Discord without having to go through publishers now, without the constraints of licensors, right? So now we can gamify how we build communities, which guess what the gamers want? They want us in the Discord, and they want us to game them. They really
it's not just that we have to. Like, we are launching our Discord next month, more than probably about a year before we announce the game, 2 years before we ship the game, because you have to.
Do it. And you know what? That gives your users ownership in the game, and they feel connected to you, and really they're going to help you make a better game, right? Well, we used to hide our games, Mark, and never show them, and then release them in a big ball of marketing foo and say, we're going to make a big splash at E3 and do it. And then people go, look, dude, why'd you make the boat game? It sucks.
Yeah.
Right. And now we can talk to the users like, yeah, dude, I don't want the red button. I want the green button. Okay. Yeah. That's easy. Right.
But you get a different kind of game that way too. You're not going to get like a big surprise because everything's out in the open all the time. It's like, I'm super fascinated by the book that's written by the single person. What's the crazy vision, and they're not out there pinging their community trying to see what they want them to write about. They're writing their vision and putting it down, but it comes with a big risk. People might not like it. Right. So you can do the same thing for a game if you want, but it's an expensive risk.
Yeah. Yep. And look, we've seen very high profile games that fell into that trap, right? So I think it was Mass Effect 3, right? The ending, there was all of that, big, kerfuffle about it. And I do love, like Ken Levine on a panel I was running, he was just like, tell them to go help. Like it's your story. If they don't like it, they don't like your story. Like, okay, go write your own, type of thing, right? So that's one side of it. But another side where we saw engaging the player base really early on turned into this wacky, unexpected experience was iDarb by Other Ocean, you know? And so when Mike went to Twitter, he's like, look, I have this engine, it draws a red box, and I want to make a game. Like, what does the red box do? And people are like, oh, it should have a gun, it should be a clown, it should do this, right? And like 65,000 responses. And he would just do this fast release, and it became what? An 8-player soccer platformer combat game where you could grief the players by doing things like typing in the hash of their game server on Twitch and then typing Rickroll, and then Rick Astley would come and dance across the screen, obscuring it for the players, right? And so they created this. It could not have been. That's a game that could not have been created without the input of all of those
community,
people,
right?
Yeah. So yeah, there's this massive space, right, for all of these things, for the game that comes out of nowhere and surprises everybody, to a community-driven game where they feel like they own it, and that becomes, look, Minecraft did that, right? Yeah. Without a community, there is no Minecraft, right? Yeah. So yeah, no, I think it's great. All right, I'll make sure that Discord is also firing up every time I start Windows. So.
It's hard. It's like, in addition to your 20 channels on Slack, here's your 20 channels on Slack.
20? Oh my goodness. Just 20?
Yeah, well, you know.
Right?
Actually, somebody posted, I believe it's Alyssa, or at least Alyssa, said, an excellent example is the Deep Rock Galactic Discord, which is amazingly active. One of the things I thought was really cool was the Subterranean team made their Trello boards public. So it's all the bugs, all the features, Subnautica rather. Yeah, sorry, Subnautica. Totally that was so cool. And also for me, looking at it, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's the way I should think about structuring my Trello boards to kind of, they have a really good working system. That was awesome that they did that, you know? Yep. So yes.
There's so many great examples, and you're right. We need to do that as a developer. The same guy that's working your megalites needs to get on Discord and talk to the community.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you're building different teams. You're building teams that are not going to be afraid of coming out of their shell to go talk to people.
Yeah. Well, I have one news story that's not even really a story. I just wanted to show this picture of Dean wearing those glasses. That's it. That's the whole story.
I read that one. Interesting.
Yeah, the X-Real. Have you all played with the X-Real glasses yet?
No, but now I want to. I mean, if I could look that cool, I would buy one in a second.
Yeah, I've heard so many people, though, that like, it's a really cool experience. You know?
Yeah.
120-inch screen, basically floating in front of you, and it connects to whatever device you're on the plane. You've got this on. It does not work with the Switch 2, though. It does not work with the Switch 2. The video out is part of the dock, not of the Switch 2. I just watched a YouTube on that. So somebody will figure out how to make a portable dock or connector for it. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. What other game news before we're going to have to start wrapping up here? Man, this hour went so fast.
Yeah. Well, did you see that Steam's added screen reader support in the SteamOS? That's pretty awesome.
Say that again now? Say who and the what now?
Well, the headline here is Steam is adding screen reader support and other accessibility tools.
Oh.
Also to big picture mode. My first reaction was it doesn't already have that.
Right? I just haven't been trying to use it. Yeah.
I'm glad that it's going to have it because that's fantastic. Thanks, Steve.
See, look, Mark is he's just lining up all this futuristic to say, if you want the guy that's going to come and poke some holes in your stuff, I'm your guy. Just, you know, that's how we got a chance to work together.
Once an engineer, always an engineer.
There you go. The best part, I think you and I were, we were talking about some scalability thing on one of these, and I just saw Mark as I'm talking about the numbers. He just went, and I went, oh, when he furrowed his brow and took this out, I'm like, we're done talking about this now. We'll talk later. Oh my goodness. Man. All right, let's see if there are any other questions that popped up. There was actually one question that popped up here in the chat. That somebody asked us to go back and touch on this again. Brandy Grace said, if you're looking for topics, in which we'd love to hear this group dish on any experiences around taking the wrong money. Comment we made earlier on, right? Which can be that's a huge can of worms, and the wrong money is different for every individual person, right? Which I think is really the big takeaway, right? Anybody want to step up? I have ideas I'll share, but I want to hear you all first.
I gave a talk years ago, and the key takeaway is that there's no such thing as free money. Every money comes with strings, and you have to ask yourself, what are the strings, and is it something you can tolerate? And as we have started talking to publishers, we've had a lot of discussions internally, and kind of our first litmus test is we're launching our community a year before game announced, years before the game ships. Are you okay with that? And surprisingly, there are some publishers who are like, no, I'm not okay with that. And I'm like, okay, great. We are not meant to work together. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So I think a lot of it really is for us, we've been really deliberate in saying, what are the things we cannot compromise on?
Right.
What are the things that we feel strongly about, but are willing to entertain? And whether the money comes from a publisher or an investor or an angel or a platform, whatever, I think it's really important to ask yourself those questions, because the answers are going to be different for every team and every product. But you have to go into it understanding that any check comes with strings.
Right.
Yep. Rick?
Unless you're doing a bank loan.
Strings. They won't do that without
they
revenue
want your
or assets.
they want your interest after so many years, right?
Yeah, that is handcuffs.
But this is the first startup I've ever done, because I've been on the other side. But Nathan, my co-founder, says, let's get money from people we want to give a big check to, right? Get a relationship with that person, understand them enough to know that, oh, this is a good, and there's always going to be the trappings of like, yeah, well, PE bought our whole thing now and you're owned by somebody else. That's a 50% risk anytime you're talking to the VCs or publishers or things like that. So you have to build contingency plans for that. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, Embracer just sold us to who? What? Okay, well, let's go figure this out, right? It's a means to an end to go ship your passion project.
Yes.
Right? And the sooner, our theory is this, the sooner we can get a couple games out there to feed us and we don't need to have those strings, the better for us. So how can we race to revenue? How can we race to release to go get something done? Because you can, if you have modest development costs, you can sell 300,000 units over 400 years and 4 years and still eat and make the next game, right? And that's kind of where I think indies need to get to again, because that's where we were in the 90s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's also, and like we were saying, so yes, 100% Jen, yes, 100% to Rick, yes, 100% to Mark, because he needed me to say it. I know what he's thinking, because that's how we're here, because we're in the same column there. But it's, you can't be so in love with your own brilliance that there are certain things you are not willing to give up, right? And that's where the struggle comes, because guess what? You still need to eat. You still have families. You still have your employees who have those responsibilities as well. And so you have to make those decisions by hanging on to as much as you feel is going to be core to it. So, I mean, maybe a good way to think about it is segmenting your grand vision into, what are we willing to let go? What's really negotiable? What's not negotiable? And then finding the right partners that fit into those different rungs. Right. And figuring out, where you can go in and get that, that type of money from, the type of people you need to bring in, those types of things. But yeah, there's no real answer for the individual. You have to come up. Yeah, that's something that you have to wrestle with, and that you have to make a decision about what you're willing to do or not do to get your game out into the world.
Don't get yourself into a state where you're in panic and you need to compromise that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have 65 employees and I'm just going to take this bad money because I need to. Don't do that to yourself. Yeah. However you can avoid to do that. Use an AI to not get there. I don't care what you do, but don't get that way, right? You're much better off saying, oh, we missed these opportunities because we couldn't scale fast enough, than you are saying, oh, now I have sold my soul to the devil and we owe them this because we used to be, use the color purple. Now we can't use it anymore because my investor doesn't like the color purple, right? And that'll happen. Well, not the color purple, but they'll tell you what to do.
They don't like the color
Blue
royalty.
sky
What's their problem?
Right.
I've done that. I have actually done that at publishers. Sorry, you guys. Your creative idea is not a good idea. You can't do that.
That's when you're like, it's not purple, it's lavender, you idiot. You're not the kind of money we want, so go shove that big bucket of money up your butt.
431. I won't want Pantone 432.
What if we name the color after you? Then can we keep it in there? Yeah, this is called. Yes,
I've had an investor look at our
That's
beta
what we'll call
build
it.
and look at the sky and say the color of the sky was wrong. And I'm like, we've worked on this for months and months, and your feedback is the color of the sky is wrong.
Yeah.
So you know what you do? You say, you like, hey, we're going to A/B test it with what you want versus the original one, and just put both of the same ones back up. And they're like, oh, yeah, the one on the right, the B, that's the one we want. Fantastic. You were right.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. All righty. Well, we're down to the hour here. Went so fast. All right. So as we are wont to do every week, let's talk about what we've been playing. So, Jen, what are you currently playing that you can recommend to everybody?
Expedition 33, which, again, I'm an Atlas fangirl, so I am predisposed to love the game, but just absolutely gorgeous. Soundtrack is amazing. I love having video game OSTs on while I write or spend time in spreadsheets, so check it out.
Awesome. And Mr. Ric Neil.
Besides playing the Maximum Football, I'm still cracking out on Assassin's Creed Shadows. I have done the story. The first hour and a half of Expedition is like a story that you have to watch, so I'm almost done with that to get into the gameplay. And then doing a few tiny, small. Disco Elysium still gets my attention, and Hollow Knight. So,
yeah, I need to go back to that. Never had the chance to finish it, but great game. How about you, Mr. Delora?
Not much gameplay going on here. A little bit of blueprints here and there, but I'm in the final throes on a draft for a project, so it's all that at the moment.
All right. Well, next week we're gonna have to. We'll get some game playing in New York next week at Games for Change. Can't wait for that. And then for me, my son, who is home from college for the summer, he's like, hey, let's go play some of that new Mario Kart World. So yesterday we got into a really good one, and yeah, I bested him in the first couple of races, and then he wound up winning ultimately. So now we're tucking into a little bit more. And what was great this morning, he texts me and he goes, hey, what input is the Switch 2 connected to in the TV now? I'm like, oh. He's actually firing up on his own, so I got him.
Yeah,
so that's what
good. That's good parenting right there.
That's
good
it.
Parenting.
That's right. Well, Jen, Rick, thank you both so much for joining us today. Mark, lovely to see you too. But I think that's the first time I've seen you unshaved. Like Mark's got that the beard going.
Equivalent to, you know, when Will Shatner opens his in Star Trek. It's like. This is my equivalent. I'm really busy. I'm not going to shave.
Will Shatner. Star Trek. Yeah. What the hell are you talking about? This is a Star Wars
Trek.
house.
Oh, I said something bad.
Exactly. Anyway, thanks everybody for joining us on this week's Boss Rush. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Mark and I are going to go ahead and run this next week from the conference. So we're looking forward to showing you all the great stuff that's happening up there at Games for Change. But again, have a wonderful rest.
This will be available online too, right?
Oh, yes, of course. Absolutely. You go to the YouTube channel, which is in the QR code. You can also go to the Boss Rush Weekly Video Game Industry News and Discussion page on LinkedIn, where now we're going to start archiving all of these. So that's going to wrap us up. Thanks, gang. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good to see you all. Cheers.
Have a good week.
Little dance music on the way.